I stepped on the button. Oh, I need to turn that down. Hey, good morning. Hang on a second. All right, let me see y'all. Let me see the comments. I did a restart, so a few of my things are not showing up there, but good morning, in case we haven't met. My name is Doug, and you are watching Doppler'S Gear Garage, and it is Saturday morning, but you probably knew that. Comments and reaction. Chris Alexander. Good morning. Tony Lybrand. Hang on a second. Let me get a little more volume here. There we go. Good morning, Anton Shred. Griffin Gaines, hello. Already in. Hang on a second. Okay, I guess we're going to have to pivot here real quick. Gosh darn it. Ladies and gentlemen, with inspiration from Griffin Gaines, thank you very much. By the way, you sent me some of that fine blend. Good morning, everybody. Let me know where it is you're coming from and what it is that you're drinking. I love this little cup, but first coffee. I can read, not but coffee first, but first coffee. I'm drinking a pizza along with my Optavia shake. All right, hang on a second. Let me finish with the salutations. Sonia, good morning. I think we need to... Join us in wishing Sonia happy birthday. It's not a birthday today, but she had a very recent birthday. Sonia, happy birthday from all of us. Great to see you. Hello, hello, hello. Albert, the Kramer better have fire protection. I can't believe I haven't, I shouldn't say it, broken this bar. John Mello, good morning, my friend. Did you sell that Les Paul yet? Okay. Thanks so much. All right. What am I playing through? I am playing through a Tonex. The amazing thing is, hang on. Oh, not anymore. I just pulled the, there we go. The Tonex one that just never really... And Sonia, I got a sad story to tell. So I got hired by a local church to play their Easter service. So I was all excited because I basically on the Saturday rehearsal, I brought my Helix down because, you know, when I play at church Sunday morning, it's a Helix thing. But I had this sound that I came home after rehearsal that was in the Tonex pedal, the larger format one. And after rehearsal on a Sunday morning, I drove home because the church is kind of right down the street. And I grabbed, wait for it, there you go, the Fulcrum. So I was all excited. But the thing is, because I've never actually set up an expression pedal on Tonex pedal, I brought a couple of different pedals with me, but from the face of the unit, I was not able to instantaneously get it to work. So unfortunately, as much as it came with me to service, it did not actually do anything during service. I did hook it up, however, to whatever device it was. So, Sonia, I have finally started using it. So, in any case, very excited. Thank you. It was fabulous, the forward and back. So, in case y'all don't know, and there will be a video coming on this, because this is definitely one of the grooviest gadgets ever. It is a bi-axis per the 2 sets of jacks. It's a bi-axis expression pedal. There we go. So it's got hang on, let me make sure I'm bi-axising here. Bi-axising here. There we go. Got to get on axis with this thing. There we go. So basically, there's a forward and back, and then there's a sideways. And it basically allows you, through the dual expression jacks there, to connect it to 2 different expression functions on devices that have multiple expression functions. So the ability to have that, if you will, 3D control, especially with a delay and a reverb, which for me would be kind of one of the obvious places, is just exceedingly groovy. So in any case, Terry, good morning to you. Gosh, this guitar is sounding good this morning. All right, Tonya. Again, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday. Rafael, good morning. Buenos dias, amigo. Black Italian coffee with a Mexican cocoa. And Rafael, remind me, were you at the Studio 7 or the Sub 7 gig in Seattle when I opened for Michael Schenker? Is that how we met? Sylvain, what's going on, Slot? In any case, good morning to you from north of the border. Awesome, awesome, awesome. No, did not sell the guitar yet. Ron, what's happening? Fellow guitar enthusiast indeed. Great to see you, my friend. Steve Greenleaf. Great to see you, Mr. Greenleaf, coming to us from sunny Costa Rica. There we go, Studio 7, you open for Michael Schenker. You and your wife sold shirts and DVDs, yes! Actually, the wife did the selling of the shirts and the DVDs. Awesome, that's what I thought. Great to see you again. Here we are. Great to see you every week. I appreciate you being a regular, but I was like, I think that's where we met. And you'd mentioned that before, but I was like, I think. In any case, all right. So what the heck? There we go. There we go. All right, so what the heck are we going to talk about today? He drove a white car from California. There's a song in there. In any case, I'm not going to bother trying to sing because that would not be a good thing. All right, so what in the heck are we going to do today? Well, first of all, since we kind of got started right into the caffeine side of things, we can jump right into some stream questions here that my dear friend Chris Alexander kindly sent through, and I just so appreciate that. By the way, if you got any questions about gear or kind of anything related to recording or anything, feel free to drop them down in the chat. And if we haven't met and you're watching but hanging out, lurking in the background, wondering if we're friendly, we're very friendly. So feel free to drop some questions down below. All right. So is it best to practice scales, picking and chords clean or in one's normal playing tones? Well, first of all, the reality is there you go. Thank you, sweethearts. So in case people don't know, the accident she had, it was not a car-related accident. We went down to Carmel, and she had an unfortunate accident on a set of stairs and broke her shoulder, which I've never done. I've broken a pelvis and bones that are kind of in the center of your moving, be it upper body or lower body, is kind of a big deal. So in any case, she's on the mend, and I've gotten a chance to flex my domestic muscles. I'm so impressed with myself. I actually load and unload the dishwasher. That is like a big deal for me. And take out the trash and all the other stuff that the manly things of the house. In any case, Scott, what a great question. Good morning to you, my friend. So the funny thing is, oh, that's funny. That's funny. That's funny. You can, Steve. You know, you open the door, but I'm only going to go all the way into the story if you say go for it, Doppler. That's so funny. So with the exception of a little tiny bit woofy in the bottom end, this is a Mark III setting or Mark III tone model. The neck position. Hold on, so I've done something here. Hold on, let me make sure. There we go. Position 2. I've been having so much fun with that sound. So that is a Mesa Boogie Mark III tone model. It is an Angle E412V tone model, which probably means vintage 30, and then that's just kind of the stock delay and reverb. And I invariably, when I dial up the delay, it'll be the stereo ping pong on the digital, and the reverb will always be 99.9% of the time the plate reverb. All right. Awesome. Appreciate that, you guys. Thank you. Look at you guys. Lovely. True. Go for it. So, in my... Oh, gosh, here we go. Hopefully, I'm not going to be a bad influence on anybody. In my misspent youth, at about 1:50 in the morning, my friend Steve Greenleaf, and I think Mike, I'm not going to mention his name because he's already guilty by association. I don't need to draw his name in there. There was a store that would sell alcohol to underage people like us. So we got in Steve's bug, well, technically his mom's bug, coming from the other aforementioned guilty party's house. Good morning, Eric. How's the finger coming along, my friends? And we came down this turn and down this hill, and it just was a little bit more than a little bug could handle. And the last thing I remember was looking at a telephone pole out of the backseat side window. That is, say you're in the back seat, you look to your left, that window there, except I'm like here, and the telephone pole's coming at me like that. And that's about the last thing I remember. And I kind of came to, and I look out on this patch of grass, the window. The window, and you know, it was fortuitous that just where it hit, you know, I wasn't right where the pole hit, right? And I came to, and I managed to, with the impact, knock the window out with my head. I came to, and I'm staring at a patch of grass, and there's the window with the rubber. Chris Alexander, what do you call the rubber stuff around the outside of the window, right? Completely intact, and my head's against the metal bar there, and I pull it back, and of course the blood comes down. But initially I wasn't in pain, and then all of a sudden the shock wore off, and I'm like, oh, I think something's not right. I started to try and get up, and I was like, no, something's definitely not right. We need to get an ambulance here. Broken pelvis, broken ribs. But in any case, it was a memorable occasion. And look, I can laugh about it because, gosh darn it, there you go. Weather stripping, thank you. All right. Back to Chris's question. In any case, and everybody else was fine. I was the guy that went to the hospital, but it was just one of those things that, like, honestly, and it's a funny thing to say this. It hurt a little bit at the time, and I remember actually Melissa, when she was having X-rays this past weekend, reminded me when I went to the hospital, there was a really mean nurse that had me up on my side with my broken ribs and the broken pelvis, and I was screaming in pain, and she was just nasty. I remember being at the hospital this past weekend, how nice people were, and remembering how nasty that woman was. In any case, she probably had an unpleasant life. So there you go. All right. So in terms of practicing with clean and dirty tones, it's a really great question, and it's both. So the really cool thing about this particular box that I'm playing through is that it enables me to do a range of things. So let's see here. So if I turn the delay and the reverb off, first of all the fancy stuff is gone. So, it's really easy in the soupiness of the delay and the reverb to not hear the notes. I'm going to turn down a little bit. To not hear the notes clearly. And the great thing about a good distorted tone, again, the only complaint I have about this particular tone is, oops, is that it's a little woofy. There. However, everything else about it I really love. It's got this... It's got all that stuff, and the neck pickup again. All right, practicing with a tone like this, it's good to have some distortion on, because for one of the things you want to be doing is you want to be monitoring open string noise or unwanted open string noise there. And by the way, I've shown this to the folks here before, but just in case you didn't catch it, one of the important techniques, let's see, C-cam. Oh, there we go. Let's go to a C-cam. There we go. Is this little bit of business right here, where... So literally I'm hitting all 6 strings, but I'm using the fleshy part of that first finger to, if you will, if you put your finger flat on the strings and kind of did that, and you will get some harmonics here and there, but literally hitting all 6 strings, but kind of getting that last little bit of curl and arch that first finger. Only 6 string rings, only the 5th string rings, the tip of the first finger is touching up against the 6th. Same concept, I'm moving my finger from string to string here, and I'm hitting all 6 strings, and by the time I move down to the 4th string, my right hand is now meeting the 6th string. Now the right hand's meeting the 6th and 5th, tip of the first finger is meeting the 4th, fleshy part's meeting the 2nd and 1st. That particular exercise is worth its weight in gold. I don't kind of remember kind of how I kind of stumbled into it, but in terms of a technique to just kind of help you get control of what's going on with both hands, and that's the sort of stuff that working with a clean tone, you're not necessarily going to hear all that stuff. Now that said, working with a clean tone is great because there is no, for example, let's say you're doing hammer-ons and pull-offs. Well, one of the things I've been working on is trying to get my pinky a little more muscly, if you will. And if you think about it, getting that pinky with a clean tone to do that same thing, it's having to do more work than when you're playing with distorted tone, because the distorted tone naturally has some compression in it, which means the louder notes are quieter and the quieter notes are louder. It just kind of levels them up, and it makes that easier. So a clean tone really does a lot to make that easier. So that said, ultimately, what are we preparing for, right? So the idea is when we actually kind of sit down and we really want to have our tone dialed. So let me bring back in the delay and the reverb here. Oh, hold on. Delay did not. There we go. Now, one of the things you always want to be listening, you heard a little G string hop in there. You want to be, in my opinion, really conscious of the sound of the D string and the G string. Those are the culprits, because invariably when you're that little G string creeping it, when you hear a jump in there, there's something that you did with your left hand. Usually there's kind of an accidental pull off. And so being aware of that is something you can actually hear with a clean tone as well. The thing about a clean tone is it gives you no love. The thing about a dirty tone is that there are other things that begin to happen that you got to learn how to control. And work with notes as they kind of bloom and sustain. The other thing is you'll get some harmonic variation. So as much as distorted tones have a tendency to compress them, because there's additional harmonic content that you get with a distorted tone. Not that with a clean tone you won't get variation. As you kind of move pitching location. But especially as you kind of play in this region. And so it gives you an additional range of palettes that you got to kind of learn how to figure out what you're going to do with them. Find out where they are. Because invariably there'll be certain things that register with you. For me, I don't spend a lot of time in it. That doesn't really do it for me. But that little location does. So, and that sort of stuff won't reveal itself. And if it's something that ultimately, when you sit down to play, there's a whole bunch of, you got to kind of get that, all the nuances of the tone going, that you kind of figure out what is it that's going to be your shtick as you're sticking, right? And that's going to vary from and again, that sort of stuff is not going to happen with a clean tone. But the preparation for that, the homework for that happens with a clean tone, with no delay and no reverb and no funnel out. Oh, holy cow, hang on a second. I've got a pickup that is lowering itself here. Hang on a second. Oh, you know what? Let's get you right here. I think I've done this here before, but that's okay. Let me switch to the C-Cam. C-Cam, here we go. All right, right here, if you take a look, one of the things, and these are things to be conscious of, this little mounting screw here, you can see it's kind of sitting up above there. There's a little bit of a shadow. You're going to see what, right there? Actually, we're seeing the shadow there. Okay, that's because this guy has lifted up out of there. This fancy little screwdriver flips around here because I need a Phillips. I'm just going to screw that puppy in just a little bit. And that little shadow will go away, and the pickup will actually be sitting at the proper height. All right. And there we go. Let's get back off there and back to Chris's questions. In any case, if you see something like happen on your guitar and you notice that it happens repeatedly, you might want to put something on your calendar like every second week, check that screw, because what will happen is one day, if you don't catch it, although that screw is potentially going to stick to the pickup, it may stick to the bottom of the pickup, and then you got to take all the strings off. You got to loosen the pickup and or the mounting ring, and it's just a whole other level of drama. All right, hang on a second here. Nandini, good morning. Hello, hello, hello. Great to see you. Long time no see. Hey, Kevin, what's going on? Welcome. How you doing? Happy Saturday. Happy Saturday to you. We are answering Chris's questions. All right. Can I discuss the pros and cons of Pro Tools, Ableton Studio One, and other DAWs? It's a great question. So I'm kind of curious if anybody wants to. Hang on a second. Chris got another question. If given the chance to play a song at Ozzy's Black Sabbath last show, what would I choose and why? Same Old Desire. It's the wrong sound. But that. I don't remember how to play the solo, but that solo of the Zach has so much feel to it. And just everything about that, just awesome. Great question. All right, so in terms of DAWs, the most used in a professional setting universal DAW is going to be Pro Tools. I was one of the session guys on Guitar Hero. A prerequisite for getting that gig was being a Pro Tools guy. If I admit, oh, I'm Logic, can we share the files? No, wouldn't have gotten hired. It was mandatory. Pro Tools or you don't get the gig. Logic is great. The thing about Pro Tools, for the most part, besides some of the little quirky stuff that it does from time to time, is that, for example, the one thing that seems like a really logical thing that you would want to do, but I understand why it doesn't let you do it, is put your session files on an external drive. Things have gotten to the point where the read and write speed off of external drives is fast enough that if you happen to run out of room on your local drive because you're working with video and all sorts of file formats that fill up the space if you're not careful, even if you're conscious about pushing stuff to the cloud and offline, there are times that you're like, I'm out of drive space. And the inability to store and work with Pro Tools files, I should say, the inability to work with Pro Tools files off of a remote drive is annoying. Now, back in the day, one of the things that when people would work with multiple drives, that you would have a kind of all your system stuff, like, so your Pro Tools session would actually live on your system drive, but you would put your audio files and your loops and all that stuff, you could put that on an external drive, which I guess is something I should try seeing if I can do that with the audio loops. But the challenge is then you've got session files that are in different places, right? And that's just generally a bad idea for all sorts of reasons. So let's just say you have an external drive that fails, and so part of your data is in one place and part of your data is in another. Not a good idea. Okay, so in terms of Ableton is a great DAW. It's stupidly easy to use. It's very user-friendly. The thing I was starting to say about Logic is there's some basic functions in Pro Tools that are very much like working with tape, and if you kind of use, I'm going to forget the name of the tool, but it's really easy to just select the end of a WAV file in edit mode and make it a little bit shorter by dragging it. And in Logic, I was like, it's a basic editing function, and I kind of went to do it. I'm like, this is just stupid. I mean, seriously, like basic editing function. Like, my whole premise of a great piece of gear is that you don't have to be a rocket scientist or read the menu to just do the basic stuff. You should just be able to grab one of the tools, get to the end of a file. If you want to make it a little shorter to edit it or chop it or something, it should be easy to do. That's a basic function that you shouldn't have to kind of go, well, I've clicked on all the stuff that I think I need to click on, and I've tried to do it, it won't do it. That sort of stuff. However, people who love logic. So that's not dissing that. And I will say kind of the ability to kind of save a logic session and be able to kind of send it off to somebody else to work on. That's one of the things that it does really well. Ableton initially was a loop program, but it came with a piece of hardware that I had, and I really liked it a lot. One of the things that's gotten much better about Pro Tools over the years is its ability to render your audio files into a mix or what's called a bounce much faster than in days past. Ableton does it at lightning speed. It's really easy to use. If you happen to have a band and you play live and you use sort of any sort of backing tracks, Ableton is pretty much the go-to program. Insanely stable, easy to use, very intuitive. If you want to edit a file, you click the end of the file and you just do stuff that you would expect it to do, and much more. When I did my last album, we had a guy when we first started playing who was a loop master, and we took all the loop. There was all this kind of stuff happening in the background, and so we had a guy that basically set up a single Ableton session with markers for each of the songs, and in turn markers in each of those songs for the different sections. He would just trigger that from a keyboard, and it was really, really cool. So it enabled us to, although everything kind of was synced to tempo and the drummer was playing to a click, it enabled us, if we wanted to loop a section, to do that. And Ableton's just fabulous for that. Studio One, I have very little experience with, other than they've got this concept of signal chains that kind of like, if you want a great vocal signal chain, you can instantiate that. You want one that's good for drums. So it for example, with drums you might add some EQ, some reverb, and things that make logical sense, that they kind of have some pre-made solutions that especially for people that aren't used to kind of like plugins, holy cow, which one and where, and make some great suggestions that make for a great workflow. It's a great question. Let me check in on the chat here real quick. Okay, hang on a second. Andrew, what's going on? We're doing great. I don't think you missed much other than some noodling. And there'll be more of that. My grand. Hey! All right, next question. Chris. And I love this one. Does USB cable length matter from the computer to the interface of Tonix pedal affect the toner latency? Now, what's really interesting about the messy setup that I'm using right here, you can actually see this little dongloid thing hanging out here. So I'm very curious, and this is a question. Has anybody here ever used any type of modeling device and connected the USB cable to it so you can use a deep editor and heard going on in the background? Because I have got, let's see if I can do this without disconnecting anything. Gosh, I hate doing this. Hold on. Let's not drop anything here. All right, check this out right here. A little higher. There we go. That little blue thing right there, and this little black thing right here. There's a video that's going to be coming on here. So basically, it's this crazy, slightly chirpy sound. And if you've ever used a modeler, again, and you're using, for example, when you're using a modeler, you can use it as your audio interface. However, I've got an Universal Audio Apollo interface that's my in and out for all the different things I want to run into my computer. I don't want to use Tone X1 as my audio interface. And to the best of my knowledge, I can't just use the USB audio out, or to the best of my capacity, to go into the computer. I did a little bit of Googling, and I'm sure there are people that are smarter than I am that know how to do this, but the deal is, so as an end result, I end up coming out of the analog out into the inputs of Pro Tools. And when you're still wanting to have the ability to edit your modeler using the deep editor, because I'm constantly making little tone tweaks and whatnot, that USB connection, as soon as you connect that, you start getting this heinous little, matter of fact, let's see if I can, yeah, that's going to be fun. Hang on a second. All right, so what I'm going to do is this little blue box here I'm going to disconnect this. There'll be a pop, most likely. Okay, now this guy right here, I'm going to bypass, and you're going to hear it a little noxious. Turn it up. That sound. It actually does go in there one of those ways. Come on, Doug, you can do this. There we go. Gone. Now, I did discover one little thing. It was with a clean tone. I noticed that when I started playing, it was almost as if there was some sort of little... Nope, it's not doing it with the distorted tone. Now, this is another version of this that's a more expensive box. And this one, that one's like $16 on Amazon. Was initially planning on covering this. This one has basically a two-path, a USB-C path and a USB 2 path that you can toggle between using these little switches that are on the side. And it does the same thing. But if you've ever had that sound and you're like, holy cow, it's driving me nuts. Robert Valdez, hang on a second. Good morning to you. Brad, good morning to you. There you go. Sonia, come on. Speaking my love language. So it is a grounding issue associated with computers. And it's just kind of one of those things. So I've had that happen with pretty much every modeler I've ever used. And it absolutely drives me nuts. But I want to be able to be connected to the deep editor. So these little boxes solve that problem. This one, the little blue one, this one right here is a cheap one. It's about $17. This one is about $90. But the thing about it is it has, well, there you go. You can kind of see that it's got the USB-C and the USB 2. There's USB 2, I think A and B. I forget the names of the connectors for the USB 2 spec. But the point being, this one gives you a few more options. Now, what was interesting about this guy, the other day I noticed that when I was playing with a clean tone, when I started playing, I could hear a little bit of the ground kind of come back in. So I have yet to try this with this guy. But the point being is that sound, it's a very interesting thing because, you know, I shot a video last week, and all of a sudden... so Brad, I will be doing a video on this real soon, and I'll see you a little bit later today. And I kind of wasn't expecting to talk about these today. Anybody that sends me an email at DougDopplerMusic.com, I will reply with a link to this. And I will get, there's two of these guys, and they're very specific ones. The cheaper one is cheaper, and the challenge is it doesn't have USB-C cabling on it. Now, this little cable here goes from USB 2 spec to USB-C spec, which is what this little guy is right here. And in any case, they work. And I was like, oh, I couldn't believe it, and it is a major trauma. I take it you've had that problem, Brad. Armando Diaz, how you doing? All right, so speaking my love language, do you use the Cab Clone IR often for these YouTube videos. First of all, good morning. Behind me, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the actual Cab Clone IRs as a standalone box. When I'm in Boogie World, I live by Cab Clone IRs, or those that are built into the amps. In my opinion, they are the best, most accurate representation of my take on what Boogie cabs sound like. I am in love with them. There's other technology on the market, other captures that have been enabled you, from the folks at Two Notes, enable you to move the microphones around. There are times you just want to plug it in, have it sound like the cabinet, and if you want to change the settings on the amp, fine. It's one of the biggest complaints that people have about our IRs. Like, all right, I downloaded this IR pack, and like, there's 90 IRs, you know, and the logical thing that most of us are going for is when I plug into my amp and I plug into my cab, I want that without the volume in the room and without having to use a mic. Just get me there. And that's the thing about the Cab Clone IR. It just does that so incredibly well. The other thing is I'm in the middle of pre-production for a video on the Badlander series. And I absolutely love these amps. They've enabled me to, you know, a lot of the about things that about my playing have developed on those amps, especially the Badlander 50 combos. I had one and then ended up picking up a second one. So they're very near and dear to my heart. So this series is this video is going to be a roundup on, it's over there, the Badlander 25, Badlander 50. I only have those as combos, and then the Badlander 100 as a head. And so I have all three instantiations of those amps, although I don't have the 25 as a combo and I don't have the 50 as a head. But the point being is that the ability to plug into the amp and have it sound like the amp, and then plug into the amp and use the built-in Cab Clone IR to either have it sound like the horizontal 212 that's kind of like right there, or I think the vertical 212 is right there, is in it as well. The only cabinet that I wish that was in there that's not, because it's more recent than the captors, is these combos have got the cream backs in there, and it was a very interesting choice. I think they sound great in there, but so you're not going to get that exact sound out of Cab Clone IR, but there's all my other favorite cabinets are in there, and I've just been so incredibly impressed with it. So anything that I'm doing with Boogie, unless I say I'm specifically using the mic or cab, it's going to be using that. And when I say with Boogie, you know, I've had the privilege of getting to know the team there and at Gibson really shockingly well. My proximity to the brand has been really amazing. They treat me so well. It's been an awesome privilege. And so, you know, it's kind of, we live in a different day, you know, than things used to be, and brands used to be like, oh, it's just not like that. Brad, okay, so I will get you that. So, and thanks for the kind words, my friend. One of the cool things that's happening in the background here, as I'm working on this pentatonic course, and in the process of it, I'm practicing a bunch of things that I'm presenting. Hey, you know what? Y'all could do me a favor. If you want to be so inclined, let me know what your biggest challenges are. First of all, Robert, I'm not sure I gave you a personal salutation, so I apologize if I managed to miss you on the Inward Bound thing. I think I've gotten to everybody. Did I? Yeah, I got Armando too. I think I played something muddy. working this morning. Gosh, that's a neat sound. And Sonia, I got to tell you, I wish the little guy here had an expression jack. Gosh, I just the ability to control the delay and the reverb. Like, I think about Fulcrum like all day long because it's sitting here going. All right. The length of the USB cable. This is one of the interesting things. Now, there are certain instances where you do and you don't want to use some sort of hub. Now, there is a rack over there that I have a number of different devices. So, first of all, whether it's cab clone IR, if you want to change out one of the IRs, whether it's fractal audio Axifex, whether it's is there a USB connection on the Mark? Yeah, because it's got cab clone IR. So the point being is that traditionally, when you're sharing data in particular, it's not a good idea to use a hub. So if there's anything, a drive in particular, ideally you don't want to put that in off of some sort of USB hub. However, relating to the concept of USB, the place that I use USB, well, I'm using it. Honestly, I very rarely use USB for audio because within my intelligence, when most of these devices, when you want to run them for USB, they want to take over and become your audio interface, which is not what I want to do. I've got an Apollo. I don't want one of these other devices for a range of reasons to become my audio interface because that's my audio interface, and everything in my universe is run through that, including my speakers running out of it. So this is really convenient because it takes only one spot on the back of your computer and gives you the ability to, or be able to take a long USB cable like this and then be able to, or like something like that, and have a single run going to your rack or all your gear, and then be able to use some sort of little breakout hub, which for using with multiple deep editors, and each one of these has an on and off little toggle switch. This is from Sabrent, S-A-B-R-E-N-T. But there's like a million of these on there. But it has individual push buttons, so you can turn whichever ones you want on or off. But the point, and at first I thought, well, I can only use one at a time. I was like, no, actually I tried. I'm like, well, I can hook up multiple things and edit multiple media devices, or sorry, edit multiple devices via USB off of this one point of connection. So one cable running out to the rack. This guy actually, it's got. I gotta get a better way of getting over to my C-cam. Let's keep you. I know what we're gonna do. We're gonna put you down there. So there you go. And so what I do is I'm a Velcro fanatic, so you can see that on the bottom. So I basically put some Velcro on the sides, inside back wall of the rack, and that sits there. There's a cable that goes to it, and then you're able to then run USB, to any of the devices that you want to speak to with the various deep editors. And what's really neat is like I was like, all right, well, I guess at first I thought these buttons were just like, it would toggle function. So whichever one you hit was working, but you can actually turn them all on or off. And so the deal is that I have not run into, and I'm not running 100-foot USB cables, but for the number one purpose that most people watching would be using USB for, I'm able to use a nice long run. Sometimes I'll actually hook up two kind of daisy chain them, and I haven't run into any issues for those sorts of things. I generally never run audio along USB. And again, most of these devices, when they want to run audio on USB, they want to become your audio interface. And that, for me, isn't a doable thing. I did some searching on using Tonex, being able to, it would be really nice to use the USB cable out as a digital out. But in so doing, for it, the only methodology I was able to find was having that become my audio interface. And that's not what I want to do. Now, there are what are called aggregate aggregate audio devices that may be the way to do that, but that is beyond my skill set and knowledge. If anybody has a word about that, feel free to bring it in the chat. What I started to say a minute ago, I'm working on... hey, Michael, hey, awesome, congratulations, dude. I spent a lot of time in A. I moved to C. Let's go back to B. Happy Kramering to you. Blank nobody. A Poopler. Doug Poopler! Playing crap again! What's good on Blank nobody? Thanks. Love you too. Wait a second. Hang on a second. If you're using a Cab Clone IR, do you use a reverb plugin? I almost always, if I'm using a reverb, will be using it inside the box. Tomo, hey! Let me switch to the... let me go there. There we go, all right. Something like that. Good morning, Tomo. Great to see you, my man. How you doing? Holy cow. Sonny! Great to see you, my friend. Spencer! All right, Tom, I'm going to jump back to you for a quick second. I'm going to open it up to the group here. So I'm working on a pentatonic course. Awesome. Very busy, I'm sure. I'm working on a pentatonic course, and Tomo, you're welcome to jump in with any genius, because that's where you live. There we go. All right, so the question is, pentatonic, what are you struggling with? Any things in particular that are giant walls, just areas you're like, peripherally, I want to know more about this, or like, this is where I live in the pentatonic and I only want to get better. All right, Tony, all right, here's my 2 cents. I struggle with everything, but honestly, knowing the fretboard, timing subs, being comfortable by knowing the scales in all keys, knowing my intervals, that's definitely helping me keeping me from hitting the wrong notes at the wrong time. Laugh out loud. Just really, really looking forward to your new course. That's awesome. Lovely, my friend, that you're working on for sure. Bixby, is it gonna rain? I think that's a typo. All right. Sonia, great to see you. Hello. Thank you so much. All right, so the deal is, and you know, Tomo, you're welcome to jump in here if you want to. The interesting thing about the minor pentatonic that, first of all, there are a lot of courses out there. I'm going to be as politically correct as I can. I've been a little unimpressed with the fact that every time I see the minor pentatonic presented intervallically, and Anthony/Tony, this is for you. When you think about the minor pentatonic, we don't think about it as a minor third, a perfect fourth, a perfect fifth, and a minor seven, even though they always write it without the minor sign, so they're really saying major seven, which is really wrong and painfully irritating. But the reality is when we play the minor pentatonic, we have a tendency to play it moving up and down the scale. And if you were to look at the minor pentatonic scale like you look at the major scale, instead of being 2 holes and a half and 3 holes and a half, which, by the way, one of the things that I love to be able to do is you take a look at the major scale, it's 2 holes and a half, and then 3 holes and a half. You can think of these guys as what I call the double-double. That is, say, this is 2 whole steps, a double, and that's another one. That only happens between the 4, 5, and 6, 5, 6, and 7. The only other place that you got a double is the 1, 2, and 3, which has a half step below and a half step above. So when we play scales, as much as we have all this theory in our head, ultimately our ear knows versus so our ear actually understands that it's 2 holes and a half, 3 holes, and that half step. So with the minor pentatonic, you have a similar thing going on where you got a minor third, major second, minor third, major second. So if you think about it as minor third and then 2 major seconds, 1 minor third, and 1 major second, which is what your ear already hears, it already understands. We're just developing language for what your ear already knows. But the ironic thing is our ear is hearing it, but our brain is like, I don't know, what's the pattern? I'm in some new key. I don't know, B flat. So, right there. There's my major second, my minor third going back. That is, I'm in B flat, so that's my major second, minor third. And your ear understands it. And then basically major second, minor third, major second. Next one. Minor third, major second, major second. Now major second, minor third, major second, minor third. So the point being is your ear is ahead of your brain already, but it knows the difference. So putting some language to all of that, as you pointed out, would be cool. Tomo, thank you. Much appreciated. I live there. So one of my other favorite things, doing the same. Sorry. There's my minor third. And being able to see, if I play that flat 7 cleanly, that minor third, major second, minor third, major second, and then the octave of that. And that's really how our ear hears the scale. So the ability to put language 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 1 to that, compared to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1 of that, gives a way of looking at that. And the great thing about then, Tony, to your point, and Spencer, I'm going to get to you in just one moment, is that if you can then kind of go, all right, so this is for anybody and everybody out there. Tomo, this is, I'm going to have so much fun doing this with you in the room. Thank you for being here. One of my favorite things about the way the guitar is laid out is because it's synonymously fretted for A, D, G, B, and E. It's that, I'm a little out of tune, but if you took this, that's basically the E, A, D, G, B, and E major scales played at the same time, and if you did this, that is, say, minor third, major second, minor third, major second. That gives you the E minor pentatonic, A, D, G, B, and E. But the point being is that you can use that as a great way to be able to take and that's basically taking each of the modes there linearly. So you learn basically, if you want to get to the note names, Anthony, this is for anybody, starting off with the major scale, basically E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, D, D sharp, C sharp, B, A, G sharp, F sharp, E, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, G sharp, F sharp, E, D, C sharp, B, A, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D, D, C sharp, B, A, G, F sharp, E, D, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, G, F sharp, E, D, C, B, A, G, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B, B, A sharp, G sharp, F sharp, E, D sharp, G sharp, B, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, E, D sharp, C sharp, B, A, G sharp, F sharp, E. And that's literally just going following the sequence of the major scale, 2 holes and a half, 3 holes and a half. You can do the same thing, however, for the minor pentatonic, E, G, A, B, D, E, and so on and so forth. So it's a really great way, Anthony, for you to be able to take you hit a C instead of a B. And then you can begin to actually apply some note knowledge to it. So basically, we begin to take, that's going to be D, E, G, A, E, G, A, B, G, A, G, A, B, D, A, B, D, E, E, G, B, D, E, G, D, E, G, A, and you're beginning and you're putting that knowledge you gathered here into shapes that you can use linearly or kind of linear and laterally. And that's where all that knowledge that you've been working on there, my friend, really becomes a help. So, hey, thank you, Johnny. Appreciate it. Welcome aboard. Maybe you've been here before, but regardless, hey. My garage says hello. Spencer, all right, here we go. The minor pentatonic can be represented the Dorian, Phrygian, and natural minor scale if you look at those 2 extra notes like Chuck Berry or Metallica. Yeah, I said those in the same sentence. I love that. Or if your second minor or major and the 6th major or minor. And you can live in those 3 modalities. Now, that was a question mark in a... Okay, if your second major or second minor or major. Well, first of all, yes. First of all, if you look at the formula, Dorian mode. All right, hey, well, welcome. Great to see you. Hello, hello. I have a tendency to do greetings when I'm feeling it. So welcome aboard. Great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. If you got questions, bring them on. All right, Spencer, to your point, so if we're looking at the major scale and we're looking at the minor pentatonic, the major, if we just took the 1, 3, 4, 5, 7th notes, and we took the 3, and we lowered a half step, we lowered the 7 a half step, we end up with 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 1. So that is to say it leaves out the 2 and it leaves out the 6th. So minor pentatonic 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 1. Dorian 2, flat 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, 1. It contains a 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 1. Phrygian, flat 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, 1. It contains a 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 1. Minor 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, 1. It contains a 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 1. So to your point, you can play the minor pentatonic over Dorian. And you can blend the Dorian into it. Now, my hack for the day is this: if you're taking E minor pentatonic and you want to blend in the Dorian mode in it, you take the 3-note per string mode downhill. And what happens by the time you take D major, we take the top 2 strings, and we take those notes. That's the 6. That's a 5 and a flat 7. That's the 6 right there, and that's the 1 and a flat 3, and that's the 2. So you've taken the 6 and the 2 from Dorian and added them in there. That's how you can blend the minor pentatonic on the Dorian. Now, if you want to do the same thing with Phrygian, what we do is instead of playing E Phrygian, in terms of the fingering, we march downhill to D Dorian. And that again gives us now the flat 6 and the flat 2. That very conveniently, we had fill in the blanks there, so you can toggle between. That is, say you approach it like a pentatonic. But you can bring in those other modal notes. Now, last but not least, so if you take D mixed lineage, that gives us the flat 6 and the natural 2 of E natural minor. And that is a really cool hack to just integrate those in there. And I think that's one of the, first of all, hold on a second. All right, Doug, either you've been practicing or taking steroids or both. It was the latter. Call. So you want to know the brutal, honest truth? I have been sitting with an absolutely dry, clean tone with the metronome, tormenting myself at 80 BPM, really working on trying to get all the little knots out. You know, it's kind of like if you got knots in your hair, you don't go with the comb. You just sit there and just like, all right, let's get those out. Thank you, Griffin. Appreciate that. That's we have a really great community of people that hang out here, and I just love that. All right, so anybody with any pentatonic pains, because the reality is it, for most people it's like Anthony slash Tony Anton Shred. It's kind of like, how do we got this mess of information. I'm going to just jump in and be referee here. We have this mess of information. We've got all the licks that we love on our favorite records that we hear people playing, that we want to figure out how we get the essence of that and bring that into the fingerboard, whether it's playing those licks, or more importantly, in my opinion, I think most people... Actually, I have a question. Anybody can answer this, please. If you could play all your favorite licks by your favorite artists, or steal the essence of those favorite licks and make them your own, which would you rather have? One or the other. It's not both. I mean, I'm saying, it could be, but I'm saying if you had your choice, one or the other, which would it be? I think for most people, given the opportunity, Chris, you're awesome. Thanks for that, guys. Appreciate it. It's like, all right, maybe the answer is a little bit of both, right? But the idea is that one of the things that I'm committed to doing is helping other players really kind of crack the code, steal the essence handstand. All right, thank you, Griffin. Right back at you. So the deal is, it's one of the things in this with the pentatonic courses that I'm very specifically creating modules, if you will. And they aren't all, this is actually one of the things, Griffin, and I'm going to come back to you in just a moment, Anthony. One of the things that I learned by gently switching from the 15-minute fundamentals course over to the pentatonic course is that it allowed me to scale back the scope, but it's also allowed me to kind of create, all right, I'm just going to work on individual modules on very specific concepts that allows me to go, okay, we're going to take one key, and I'm going to show you how to integrate the minor, or I should say the Dorian, Phrygian, and minor scales into that, so you see how you can do that. Now, I'm actually going to probably take an A Dorian, a B Phrygian, and an E minor progression, because this is the biggest challenge that most people face when playing the minor pentatonic, is they know somehow it relates to the modes, but they don't have a specific example. In fact, you know what? I'm actually going to say that I'm actually going to do both of those things, because this is actually really the challenge. It's like, look, I'm at one tonal center. How do I know which one I'm going to use, right? The other thing is that I'm going to create an A Dorian progression, relative Phrygian, B Phrygian, and E minor, such that if we're in A Dorian... Right, so that was... That's the Dorian. What I call impregnated into the minor pentatonic. So... So the point being is now we're playing relative to the same seven notes. That is, say A Dorian is A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A. B Phrygian is B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B. We're starting the same group of major scale seven notes for the key of G, G, A, B, C, D, F sharp, G, off of the 2, the Dorian mode, off of the 3, the Phrygian mode. And the idea right, so I was just saying the 1 flat 3 and 4. And there's the 5. Then you move up to the 6. Right, that's what it was. Where you're blending in a minor pentatonic and those modal notes, just enough such that when you want to. So on and so forth. All right, Tony. Well, those courses that you're talking about are going to be phenomenal. But man, it's hard to do the pentatonics. 3-note per string mode versus, hold on a second. But it's hard to do the pentatonics in 3-note per string mode versus usual 2 notes. For me anyway, that last pinky stretch is a must. So the deal is, it's not until you start doing it. And, you know, first of all, one of the things you could do would be to take it for A, because on 99% of there was a period of time the Fenders were only making a 21 fret neck, and pretty much all the Fenders for the past 2 decades are 22 fret necks. Now you could take it for A. I like to work in G because it starts at the bottom of the neck and the top of the neck there. And you kind of aren't, if you, in A, there's kind of a pattern that's hiding underneath. I like kind of starting from the bottom, going up there, and you'll see the pattern that's below there, and then you start working in other keys. However, but A, is a great key to work in as well, because the notes are a little closer to each other. The other thing that you could do would be start at something like E. And and start working down the neck from there. The thing that's convenient about E versus G, or even A, is that you don't run into any of the wacky stuff until you know that area there. Oh, I'm sorry, flat 7. That's the great thing about knowing the formula. Minor third, major second, minor third, major second. You can do this. That's always been a hard part for me, switching between fingered patterns and patterns that include an open string. It's all psychological, but it's still there. And that's that transition right there. That one's a little wacky because it's I'm going to call that 4-2 stretch 1, and then well, if I'm playing it from low to high, I'd call that stretch 1 to stretch 4, and stretch 1 3 stretch 4. But kind of playing it fast. By the way, foursies, giant win. Don't worry about speed. Twosies, ones. All right. The funnest thing about kind of what's happening with this pentatonic course is I'm kind of figuring out exactly what I'm going to do. Is that I'm realizing, unlike Max, what's going on? I don't recognize that name or that photo. I see some Gibson action going on there. Pleasure. Hey. I haven't got it cornered, but I'm working on it. Pleasure. Welcome aboard, my man. All right, so that, and Griffin, if you're still here, like I said a minute ago, the 15-minute fundamentals course was starting to become so big, it was becoming unimaginable about how I was going to make the pieces work. What's really neat is I'm working on the piece of the pentatonic course and doing that little momentary pivot. It allowed me to figure out how I can create micro modules. It's actually one of the things, if you've checked out Tomo's teaching, which is great, he has modules on individual topics. And it's a great way to, first of all, if you've got some sort of teaching thing where what you do is people are paying by a monthly stipend. And I'm one of Tomo's customers, if you will, or students is a better term. The point being that you kind of have this obligation to kind of drip content out. So the format is a little bit different than actually doing this course, where I'm like, okay, I need to check all these boxes. And what's neat is as I'm kind of really rounding the bend on kind of the last bit of the content mapping, it's informing me around a number of the things that I'm going to do for 15-minute fundamentals, and that it allows me to kind of go, look, I can take a concept. I don't have to have a million examples of it, but I can have one example and we'll say, this is what I'm thinking, this is how I'm doing, this is the strategy for this. And so there's going to be a guitar profile. By the way, I'd love to know the people that are watching here that are Guitar Pro users. Can you just, if you would be so kind, pretty please, put in the chat, I'm a Guitar Pro user, and anything, in as well as like how often you might use it. But just, I'm a Guitar Pro user would be a huge help. It's a slightly ghetto-looking program. But what I'm finding I'm able to do with it is use as a practice tool, and to be able to document very specific ideas. So one of the things that I'm when I play blues, thank you very much. Awesome. Brett, hello, my friend. Hello. I should say, hold on. Hello. Chris, awesome. Thank you so much. So I'm, what's neat is there's certain types of things that you might want to document, like, so let's say, you're working on a, over a 1 chord, which is really a 1/7, and a 4 chord, a 4/7, 5 chord. Heard but haven't tried it yet. Okay, cool. Thanks for that. It's a great vehicle to because it basically allows you to kind of create layered tracks. But most of the time, you'll see it's used in 2 different ways. One, you can use it to kind of score tab and playthroughs for songs that people want to learn, or you can use it as a teaching tool on a compositional level to score different type of ideas with tempo, so people can slow it down. And because it's all MIDI based sounds, unless you load audio files in there, which is going to be one of the things I'm going to do, so you can play with real drums and real bass, but you can mute those if you just want to mute them, and then slow the tempo down and have a virtual bass player kind of going do 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 do. Or do. So you can practice stuff, but for example, over is over the 1 chord. Play major pentatonic and over the 4, which I'm going to describe as a 4-7 and a 5-7 because they're really dominant chords, which means they're not really a 1 or a 4. They're a 1-7 and a 4-7 and a 5-7, even though it's really a 5 and a 5. However, over the 4 chord. So I blend stuff. So, except for the notes that I added. So basically using the major pentatonic over the 1, minor pentatonic over the 4 and the 5. That was really a crappy example, but you get the idea. What's neat is I've kind of put together a little progression outlining that, and that's one of the pieces that I've worked that it's like it allowed me to really easily just kind of go here over the 1 chord, over the 4 chord, back to the 1 chord, back to the major pentatonic, 4 chord minor pentatonic, back to the 1 chord major pentatonic, 5 chord minor pentatonic, 1 chord, 5 chord, back to the minor pentatonic. So anywhere it's the 1 chord major pentatonic, 4 and 5 minor pentatonic. Now that's not really the way that I actually like to play blues personally. Over the 1 chord. I like to integrate. It's actually what I call the mixo-octatonic scale. Sometimes including the natural 7. A lot of chromatic. But the point being, that bit, there's all this kind of crazy stuff going on, which is it's outlining the Mixolydian scale, because that's where the dominant 7 chord comes. It's the 1, 3, 5, and the flat 7. That's what makes a chord dominant. Well, what makes a chord dominant is the natural 3 and the flat 7, but a dominant 7 chord traditionally would be a 1, 3, 5, flat 7. But that little bit, you can play them. I'm not getting all the way to natural 3. Then over the 4 chord, just straight minor pentatonic. Or, and then you're doing all this wacky stuff where you're outlining, because if that's 5, that's 4, that's 3, that's 2, and it could look like you're playing the major pentatonic, but you're not. You're playing the 5, 6, 1, and the 2 of the Dorian mode. Jimmy Page, right? Point being is there's all this wacky stuff happening that I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to break that down, other than I think there's just going to be one progression that I'm going to kind of do. where I kind of map through a couple of things and say, this is part of what I do. Because what I want to do for people, Anthony, specifically for folks like you, hey, Michael, what's going on, my man? Is to be able to go, look, here, it's not just that this little lick here is a curated example of one of the things you can do. It's a curated distillation of, like, this is the concept. This is the presentation that I'm going to do for that concept. This is what I'm thinking. This is the distillation of that. Make that your own. And it allows me to break open. And in turn, when we come back to 15-minute fundamentals, I'm going to approach the course material the same way. Should be a lot of fun. All right. I also have Guitar Pro 8 and use it strictly for tab and looping practice features. I am really illiterate when it comes to building tracks and all other stuff that you're phenomenal at, unfortunately. Note to self. Doug, quick question. Are these courses going to be featured on Guitar Pro 8? I apologize, but it's already been discussed. If I may have missed it. First of all, everybody jumps in and out of these streams, so you never need to apologize. Because, you know, but appreciate it, but always feel free to re-ask, always. So there is a thing that Guitar Pro does that I'm really excited about, that I've applied for, that as a educator, even if you don't have a school, you can go through their application process and say, look, I'm a private instructor. I have these students, and I want to be able to bring them into the Guitar Pro family. I bought I bought it. Every so often they run kind of discounts on the course. I bought it during one of those quote unquote pledge rushes, if you will. But what I want is for that quote unquote school status, and it was very clear up front. I'm a private instructor. But both for that and for the people who sign up for the course, I want them to be able to get the 50% off rate on Guitar Pro, because for me as a teacher, as a vehicle, it's a really, 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 really... Hang on. Let's see what happens. Can we get to Guitar Pro? Let's see here. We should be able to get to Guitar Pro. Brings with G. There we go. All right. Well, there you go. What do you know? The major and minor pentatonic outlining in A. So that's literally what I was just talking about. And I, you know, this program, I've been able to learn it pretty quickly. But if you take a look at this interface, all the stuff over on the left-hand side, over the right-hand side, it's not necessarily what I would normally think about when I think of a quote-unquote sexy-looking interface, right? But your ability to be able to play with that, whatever it is the idea is, set it up with repeat bars and be able to loop it. Tony, as you pointed out, it's incredibly powerful. And I just went, wow. It's also allowed me to solve some stuff. I don't know if Brad, if you're on here, or Chris, you're still on here, but there's an exercise, you know, and it's an interesting thing, getting up to certain tempos where I'm discovering at super fast tempos, there are certain things that I share in common with my students. So 16th note triplets. There we go. I have a tendency to drop my last. So that right there at the end was 16th note triplets. Those are fast. But the thing is when I get playing 8th note triplets at 160 BPM, I notice I sometimes kind of start to have, I don't know how to describe it, rhythm vertigo, where you're kind of like, woo, you got a little loopy. And it's simply because at certain subdivisions where you're playing things at a certain rate, it just begins to, it just gets hard. So, you know, it's something that I have, you know, for some people that happens at a slower rate. You know, so in any case, Guitar Pro, it's once I kind of realized the potential that it has as a music educator, most importantly, not for me, but for me being able to distill an idea and go, for you, all right, let's just say, you know, we would. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 4 notes of the minor pentatonic. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and then I'm going to take 6 notes from the Dorian mode. Actually, I'm not going to use my pinky. I'm sorry, not going to use my third finger. So that was basically taking the 5, flat 7, 1, and flat 3 of the E minor pentatonic, and then I took. Earlier we talked about if we want to impregnate the E minor pentatonic with the Dorian mode, we can take the 3-note string mode downhill from E, which rather than we're playing E Dorian, because if we played E Dorian, when we end up on the second string, we want to be able to find a really cool hack to be able, even though I know this is a 5, 6, flat 7, 1, 2, flat 3, I want to help other people to go, hey, look, if you go downhill one mode, if we're in E Dorian, let's jump down to D major, and take the top 2 strings of that and toggle between and that. And that's akin. Sorry. There you go. That's akin to that. And then we've got when we go to do Phrygian, we go downhill, and that gets us to D Dorian. And the great thing about something, well, I'll do it for minor as well. And that's just jumping downhill to D mixolydian. So the idea is that will probably be an exercise, because I really kind of like, again, making it easy to demonstrate a strategy, right? Because then you're calling, oh, okay. And then there'll be probably some faster version or something like that. All right. Thank you, Chris. You're a gem. So yeah, it's shockingly, and you know, the thing is that I can get in there. And one of the other benefits about that is that I'm going to use it as a vehicle. Tony, there's a certain amount. You alluded to this before. All right. We know that there's note names. We know that there's scale degree numbers. We know that there's rhythmic subdivisions. But how do we kind of utilize that stuff in a way that we're using it to describe the music we're playing, right? Rather than just like, well, I know that it's out there, I guess I better study it. And the neat thing about that's 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. And this is. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, 5, 4. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So those are, as opposed to, those are 8th note triplets. And those are 16th note triplets. And if we want to get our 16th note triplets to the point where we have to usually start off slowly, and the best way to get there is taking 8th note triplets. 3, 4. That's say there's 3 per beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. And having, you know, this thing, our ear knows. I'm going to change note on each beat. 3, 4. Our ear recognizes what that is. We just don't always have language for the things that our ear has. So I'm just going to help people, dare I say, like you, just kind of go, this is the language describing something you're already doing. See, then when you're going, if you're going 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, or you're going 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are 8th note triplets, 16th note triplets. and know the difference between them. So when you're playing 16-note triplets, like 16-note triplets. So it gives you a strategy for what you're working for. You kind of go, I want to be able to play 16-note triplets at fill in the blank BPM. The way to get there is actually back off to 8th note triplets. So I keep dropping that last note. There we go. But having a mental awareness of things that we're doing in our playing allows us to kind of make better sense of it. When we hit something that's the right thing, we go, okay, I did this because it made sense, right? These are things that already make sense or don't make sense to our ear. We know when we're doing it right, we know when we're doing it wrong, but we're kind of like, sometimes we just don't know why, and the knowing why is a big deal. All right, hey, it's a lesson day. First of all, I want to thank you for hanging out. What you guys don't know is there's a little number here that I can see when I'm doing a live stream. And when I see a day like today where it's been pretty consistency about that same number and not kind of drop down, it is really appreciated. I say this every week, but it's because, first and foremost, I don't know if I say this every week, as I think about this course stuff and really the privilege of helping other people get better at guitar, I'm drawn back to the fact that, like, this is an instrument that I have loved my pretty much entire life. And I get the chance to, I know that there are people that are madly passionate about golf and bowling and, softball. But, hey, Andy, what's going on, neighbor? Hey. Great to see you, my friend. Thank you so much. Hello. I have been blessed with the greatest neighbors ever. So Andy is my former neighbor uphill there, and it's just, I'm so grateful, amongst many things to be grateful for. Great neighbors who love a little rock and roll is a big deal in my world. So of all the things that I could be passionate about, guitar, and the other members of the guitar community, we share a passion for something that I realize, well, for example, golf. You can look at golf clubs just like we look at gear. You can think about it just like we think about gear and playing. But unlike golf, you generally can't play golf until you're out on the course. You can take a guitar and play music anywhere and everywhere you want to. It's something that permeates that. Not only that, music is going on in the background. It's something that permeates the DNA of our life in a way that there are very few things that can do that. And not only that, it permeates the DNA of people that don't actually play. So people like me, I don't really care that much about golf. I don't really, I'm not going to turn it on the TV. Nothing against golf players, but it's just like, cool. That's great. That's awesome. Have fun with it. But unlike golf, people who play golf who don't play guitar have an interest in and love for music, because music moves people on an emotional level. So to be able to be part of a conversation with players who are passionate about some instrument that I'm so passionate about, we get to share that interest, and I get a chance to be a part of helping other people realize things on their instrument is an incredibly powerful thing to have a part of. And I'm realizing as I'm working on this stuff, because as I'm working on these albums, so much of what I'm doing is pentatonic based, that I'm realizing that these courses are going to do a certain amount to support financially, most definitely. But the pentatonic course in particular, I'm to a certain extent going, hey, if you're looking for another pentatonic, quote unquote, dude, yo. And I'm really realizing this course is going to play an important role in a way that I had never imagined as it comes to making this music, because it's a natural thing of discovery that when you have somebody that you potentially study with, that you see that they have a passion to help you get better at what you're doing, you kind of go, well, let me listen to their music. And my bands and the albums, we put a lot of TLC into making them the best they could be. I think people are going to enjoy that. And so there's an unexpected dividend that I didn't see that coming. But that's kind of how it works when you focus on doing things for other people. you don't do it because of the dividends, and you don't think about the dividends, but the dividends happen independent of that, and it's kind of a funny way that works. All that to say, being able to hang out with a bunch of other guitar players and talk about guitar and, you know, kind of troubleshoot and, you know, how we deal with this thing. You know, I'm a student of the instrument as much as I'm a teacher, but I love the study side and I love the learning side. So being able to have this journey with you means a lot. So I just